This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. It is Monday, January 6th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, the growing confrontation between the United States and Iran after President Trump ordered the strike that killed the mastermind behind Iran's terror attacks and campaigns throughout the Middle East. We're going to get the word on what could be next from Jerusalem. Another front in the culture wars, this time the battle over who can have a baby. Is it only men or only women or men too? He was the victim of abuse himself. We're going to tell you how a pastor now helps sexual abuse victims to recover. And remember God's General, the memorial service this weekend for legendary evangelist Reinhard Bonnke. All those stories and more ahead in this edition of CBN Newswatch. We begin this half hour with the face-off between Iran and the United States, which has the Middle East bracing for everything from targeted strikes to the verge of war. As Chris Mitchell now reports from Jerusalem, the consequences of the killing of Iran's General Qasem Soleimani are felt throughout the region and around the world.
Iran's tributes to Soleimani reached a crescendo when his casket arrived in Tehran. From Baghdad to Beirut, Iran and its allies are promising revenge and retaliation. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah vowed his terror group can now target U.S. troops in the region. Iran has also threatened to attack Israeli cities. The Shiite-dominated Iraqi parliament passed a non-binding resolution to kick the U.S. out of Iraq, while in Tehran, Iran announced it will no longer comply with the restrictions of the 2015 nuclear agreement. Trump threatened sanctions against Iraq if they force U.S. troops out. Oil prices are up, and the strategic Strait of Hormuz could be a key target for Iran to hit the most strategic waterway for the world's oil supply. In Washington, President Trump says the U.S. will strike back in case of any Iranian retaliation. And he's sending an additional 3,500 troops to the region and deploying missiles at embassies and U.S. bases. On Sunday talk shows, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo defended the strike.
We would have been culpably negligent had we not gone after Soleimani when we had the opportunity. He was actively engaged in plotting against American interests.
Retired General David Petraeus said the strike hit Iran's most powerful military figure.
This is bigger than bin Laden. It's bigger than Baghdadi. This is the most powerful figure in Iran for the solidification of the Shia crescent and also the operational commander of the actions that they were pursuing.
Those plans included building up Iranian proxy forces throughout the Middle East, including Iraq. Pompeo says Iran wants to turn the country into a vassal state, and the Obama administration's nuclear deal helped them do it.
The Iranian government is trying to basically take over Iraq's political system. Iran is bribing Iraqi politicians. To the Iraqi people, do not allow your politicians to turn Iraq into a proxy of Iran.
While many are mourning Soleimani, others in Iraq and Iran are celebrating the death of who many consider the mastermind of terror throughout the Middle East. Despite the talk of war, some are asking if this could also be a time for diplomatic overtures to Iran. Yet in the meantime, there's heightened security in major U.S. cities and concern about cyber attacks on key infrastructure throughout the U.S. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, why was Soleimani so feared, and what was some of his master plan for the Middle East?
Well, Ephraim, he was feared because he was sort of the arch-terrorist of all arch-terrorists here in the Middle East. And as David Petraeus says, much more important target than al-Baghdadi or even members of al-Qaeda. What he had in plan right now was a master plan for the region, and he wanted to have regional hegemony for Iran. They also wanted to build a land bridge, military land bridge from Tehran all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. In particular, what he wanted to do was surround Israel with proxy enemies. That would be Hezbollah on its northern border, Islamic Jihad and Hamas on its southern border, even the Houthis in Yemen, and especially in Syria and Iraq. He was providing ballistic missiles, precision-guided missiles to some of these Shiite militia inside Iraq and also in Syria. And that's why Israel has been trying to hit those targets for months now. And that's what happened when the U.S. targeted some of these bases inside Iraq. And overall, Ephraim, I think people need to understand that Iran really has a goal to dominate the world. That's their ultimate goal and plan. Even if it may seem farcical to us in the West, that's what they ultimately want to do.
That said, what are the dangers Israel is now facing, and what is it doing to prepare?
Well, what it's doing right now to prepare, it's closing down a ski resort on the border in the Golan Heights on Mount Hermon. Really, if you were here in the streets of Jerusalem, you wouldn't see anything changing. But even just a couple of weeks ago, even before Soleimani was targeted, the IDF Chief of Staff said that preparing for an intense confrontation with Iran. He says he can't guarantee it's going to be a short war, but he wants the public to be prepared for this kind of confrontation. One of the dangers they face is about 150,000 rockets by Hezbollah pointed at Israel. Some could hit anywhere in Israel from its north to the south. Many of these, or some of these right now, are precision-guided missiles that pose a threat to military installations, key infrastructure. So it's a very dangerous scenario right now for Israel.
Kristen, following this story, we see reports of mourning in Iran over Soleimani, but we also hear reports of people celebrating his death. Why the different reactions?
Well, I think that's a key point to be made here in the region. You might get the sense that all of the region is mourning, is upset, is angry, and vowing revenge and retaliation. But you have to remember that many people here inside Iraq, inside Iran even, and throughout the Middle East are really celebrating because he has been a brutal terror master. You can see just in the last couple of weeks where there have been protests inside Iraq and Iran where hundreds have been killed, many at the orders of Soleimani. So many people, in fact, in Iran were passing out sweets instead of mourning Soleimani. So, and you have to realize, too, that there are many enemies of Iran, like Saudi Arabia, that really right now privately are probably celebrating his death.
I know a prayer ministry in Jerusalem issued a prayer alert. How are they recommending to be praying?
Well, they're recommending first to pray against unholy alliances with Iran and its neighbors, whether in Syria, Iraq, even Turkey and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Also praying for protection of the people that would be targeted by Iran. That's Psalm 91, which is that great psalm of protection. They're asking people to pray for that, for the people that may be potential targets. And they're asking, Father, for God's sovereignty here in the region, that he would be overseeing what could be a very volatile future in the next few weeks and months.
All right, Chris Mitchell reporting for us from Jerusalem. Chris, thank you. Islamic terrorists overran a key military base used by American counter-terrorist forces in Kenya before dawn Sunday. The attack by members of the al-Shabaab group based in neighboring Somalia killed a U.S. serviceman and 2 Defense Department contractors and destroyed American aircraft and vehicles before the terrorists were pushed back. 5 of the attackers were killed. Kenya is a key base for fighting al-Shabaab, which is linked to al-Qaeda. Back here at home, 5 people are dead and about 60 injured on the Pennsylvania Turnpike early Sunday morning when a loaded bus went out of control on a hill, setting off a chain reaction that involved 3 tractor trailers and a passenger car. The injured victims range from age 7 to 67. All are expected to survive. The bus was traveling from Rockaway, New Jersey to Cincinnati, Ohio. It was traveling downhill on a curve when it careened up an embankment and rolled over. 2 tractor trailers then hit the bus, and a third crashed into those trucks, and it turned into a chain reaction crash. Coming up, it is one of the most basic facts of nature, the fact that women can have babies and men can't. Yet now, the simple fact has become controversial in the current war over gender identity. We're going to bring you a look at that when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
It's a scientific fact never questioned until recently, the fact that women can give birth and men cannot. Yet it is creating controversy in the culture war over gender identity. Mark Martin is on this story.
A popular podcaster has dropped a guest because the woman says that only women can have children. FaithWire's Dan Andros is here with this trending story. Dan, who all is involved here and what exactly happened?
Yeah, so apparently Candace Owens, who's a conservative commentator, she's a Trump supporter, she's very opinionated, and she works for PragerU, among others, and she's always out there with her opinions, and she's very bold with her opinions, but the Daily Mirror had run a story about claiming a transgender man had given birth through artificial, and it's a very confusing headline, artificial insemination from a transgender woman, sperm donation. So it was really what it was just, a woman who had given birth via artificial insemination from a man donor, a male donor. So that story was being soundly sort of mocked and ridiculed on Twitter. And so what happened, Candace retweeted the article and just said, only women can give birth. And so she had been scheduled to be on a podcast with New York podcaster Jamila Jamil. And she's kind of a notorious progressive who famously sort of bragged about her abortion and said that it, in her own life, that caused her the ability to go be successful in her career, et cetera, et cetera. So what happened was when Jamila saw this tweet from Candace, she actually canceled her appearance on the show, saying that the transgender people on her staff would feel unsafe. And so she basically was banned from the show for stating a scientific fact.
Why would a biological scientific fact be harmful to transgender people? How does this play into their agenda, do you think?
Yeah, well, there's this ongoing debate and, where people are, really divided on this fact. And it is a scientific fact. But when you're talking about gender issues, there are those who want to say, if you don't identify with the gender that you were given at birth by God, that you have to go along with what that person says. And so that's kind of where the rub is, where people who don't want to relinquish the truth and actually just say what you actually are, which is a male or a female, they're kind of butting heads. And so in pushing that agenda, it's hard to say exactly what is the end game with this one, but it is very clear that those on the left would prefer to be able to just call people whatever they would choose to be rather than what God gave them as a gender at birth.
As you mentioned, Candace Owens is controversial in her own right as a black woman speaking out against Democrats. What's her message? Break it down a little bit more for us.
Yeah, well, she's just been very pro-Trump and in her stances. And so I think anytime you come out and you're pro-Trump, and she is a minority, she's a female. So, you know, there's a lot of angst, I think, from those who on the other side, these anti-Trump types who, you know, feel that, you know, she's supporting someone who they would say is a racist. So I think anyone defending the president at this point is going to be, you know, controversial to a degree. Whether it's warranted or not, it's hard to say. You know, I can't speak for all the things that Candace has said, but basically she is a Trump supporter. And so that's just going to agitate people on the left who don't like the president.
Well, what's coming up tonight on Faith versus Culture?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about this tragic shooting that happened in White Settlement, Texas, and a lot of the issues that came out of that and the aftermath of it, where we saw a hero, Jack Wilson, actually stop the shooting before it got worse. But we're seeing some of the congregants forgive this shooter. We're talking about some of the issues with how can we be better prepared as a church body, as this church was. They were prepared to stop this incident. So we're going to talk about those issues and more on tonight's episode.
All right, Dan Andros with FaithWire. Thank you, sir.
And you can catch FaithWire on the CBN News Channel tonight at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Still ahead, as the Me Too movement has shaken up Hollywood and the political world, it's also rocked the church. We're going to introduce you to one pastor who's a survivor of sexual abuse himself, and we're going to show you how he's working to help others. Stay with us.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Superbook fans, here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man,
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
The Me Too movement sent shockwaves of seismic proportions across Hollywood, Wall Street, and Washington. Now the issue is shaking the church as well. Our John Jessup talked to a sexual abuse survivor who's on a mission to help victims see themselves in a different light.
Kim and Monty Weatherall enjoy spending time together, whether it's in church or working out at the gym. She's helped him tackle weight loss.
80 pounds, yes. I walked in there well over 300 and upwards of 320 pounds.
And also in dealing with a painful past.
When I got home and he told me what his plan was, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
I made a decision to end my life.
Monty resisted getting help because as a pastor, he's used to giving advice.
Most people in his life know Pastor Monty as a young, dynamic preacher, always armed with an encouraging word. What they didn't know was for years, he wore many masks, projecting different personas to hide a painful secret.
From 4 to 7 years old, I was abused over those 3 years by 2 male relatives.
He never told anyone about the abuse, fearing retribution. Instead, Monty hid the pain, pretending to be someone else.
For the rest of my life, I began to play these different characters because I was so uncomfortable with being myself.
It worked until the only character left was the man in the mirror.
I didn't realize that on some level I was blaming myself, but I had to give myself permission to realize that it wasn't my fault. That suicidal spirit that was on me, it just broke. But I knew that the journey wasn't over.
The road to recovery started on the outside with a goal of getting in shape to lay a foundation for his emotional healing.
I think psychologically, as I am being, tortured as a child by the abusers, I try to really just hide all of that. Being overweight, out of shape, I made a decision that a part of taking my life back, I had to take my body back.
Monty found a counselor and worked through difficult sessions, recalling those early childhood memories. And just like female victims, it took decades into adulthood to begin the process.
The majority of women that I see who are violated as a child really aren't ready to start the healing process till they're at least 30.
Sexual violence has got to go.
In the #MeToo era, sexual abuse scandals have now hit evangelical circles with its own social media campaign, #Church2.
I regretfully had a sexual incident with a female high school senior in the church.
Challenging as it may be, Wheeler believes these revelations can help churches do better to address sexual abuse and reach victims.
What we are seeing is the community as a whole starting to at least willing to talk about this conversation. We're seeing that churches are now, I think the Me Too movement is helping some pastors realize that, oh my gosh, we do have a lot of survivors in our churches, and what are we doing and what can we do to help them heal?
That question is what motivates Monty Weatherall.
I know the shame, I know the courage that it took for those women and those men that are coming out to say this happened to me.
With so much interest in justice reform and redemption stories, he's concerned about neglecting the victim.
I'm glad that legislation is happening. I'm glad when authentic redemption has taken place. That's great, but we can't forget those boys, those girls, those men, those women that have been abused. And so I know why the Holy Spirit led me to write this book, for that reason.
That book, Taking My Life Back, documents how Monty went from suicidal thoughts
we are healed right now
to thriving and even forgiving his abusers.
For me, it started with a decision. I had to make a decision to forgive those that sexually abused me. And my abusers, they didn't know who I was going to become. They didn't know I would become a pastor that would help thousands. They didn't know I would even witness to them and lead them to Christ and baptize one of them.
For Kim, she says their marriage is stronger and they're happier than ever.
Sometimes I look at him and I don't even think it's the same person I married. He was wonderful then, but he's wonderful and healthy and whole now.
John Jessup, CBN News.
Jesus. Amen.
Reporting in Swansea, Illinois.
Coming up, Christians around the world remember the man affectionately known as God's General, Evangelist Reinhard Bonnke. We're going to bring you a look at his memorial service from this weekend when we come back. Stay with us.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past?
you can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Christian leaders gathered in Orlando, Florida this weekend to remember evangelist Reinhard Bonnke, who died in December. Many people gave tribute to Bonnke, who spent 60 of his 79 years preaching the gospel, recording some 77 million salvations. The service was more than a memorial. It was also a passing of the torch to the next generation. CBN President and CEO Gordon Robertson shared how God changed the course of his life when he attended a Bonnke crusade in India in 1994 with Pastor John Jimenez, as God used it to call him into ministry. And Nigeria's Muslim president extended his condolences and called Bonnke's death a great loss to Nigeria, Africa, and the entire world. Time now for your Monday Motivation, and I leave you with this thought as we embark upon the first full week of the new year. They're lyrics from a familiar song. It's a new season, it's a new day, a fresh anointing is flowing my way. It's a season of power and prosperity. It's a new season coming to me. With that word, make it a marvelous Monday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our CBN News programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, or on CBN News or at CBNNews.com. We love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you tomorrow.